When I was given the task to find us a speaker on the economy, I thought none other than Dr. Greg Brock. Dr. Greg Brock is a professor at my alumni, economics professor at Georgia Southern University. He lives in both Bullock County and Glenn County, and he's active in both chapters of the Democratic Party. He and his wife, Jane with the blue hair, are activists and allies for many progressive causes. Tonight, he share with us about the financial international impact, how it's going to affect us. When I first met Dr. Brock and Jane, it was through Nan Phillips and Bill Phillips. Nan and Bill kind of adopted me as their own, and so any friend of Nan and Phillips are a friend of mine, Dr. Brock.
Okay, thank you. Oh. Okay, is it on? Oh yeah, it's on. Okay. Okay, what happened? Oh, okay. Okay, well, we're going to talk today about tariffs, and tariffs unite economists across the board. So if we're building a big tent as a Democratic Party, this is an opportunity, okay? Because it's hard to find, except for Trump's crazy Peter Navarro, someone who supports these tariffs, okay? So we got some real conservative economists and some real liberal. We all agree this is a bad idea, okay? It was a bad idea in 1930 when Herbert Hoover signed them. Over 1,000 economists wrote a letter, and in 2016, most economists wrote another letter, said don't do this, okay? So it's a chance to bring us all together. The changing of his mind about the tariffs, of course, is to sow chaos. So as the person just said, find a couple of issues, focus on that, because they're spreading chaos to drain you, right, so that you can't focus, okay? So I'm focusing on things like tariffs and the situation in Ukraine. There's many issues out there, but they're trying to sow chaos. There is no plan, too. You'll hear this, right, that, oh, we have a plan you'll see in 6 months, okay? Where our supply chains are collapsing as the prices go up, well, we have a plan. They don't have a plan, okay? Peter Navarro was plucked out of obscurity. He spent some jail time because of 2020. So that's something that you'll hear. What can you do? Okay, well, there's several things you can do. We can take the big picture, the U.S. economy, and if you're interested in data like I am, there's lots of data out there. This is a site that kind of visualizes that data. So you can see how all the countries of the world have grown in the past 2 centuries. We're going to have, down on the bottom, GDP per capita. That means kind of high income, wealth is going that way. And life expectancy, that's used as a measure of health, okay? So we can look at how the countries have performed over time and go through 2 centuries. Each of those little bubbles is a country, and the 2 big ones are China and India because they got the most people, okay? So you're going to see them head that way, and one of these yellow ones out there is the United States, but we're not at the very top, okay? And when wars come, here's World War I, see them all bounce, and look for World War II and the Great Depression, 1930s, okay? Tariffs made the Great Depression a lot worse. It didn't cause the Great Depression, but why would it last so long throughout the 1930s? One of the reasons was tariffs, okay? I want to talk about some of the myths of tariffs that they'll use to defend why they're doing that, okay? First of all, we had no income tax before 1913, so tariffs were a source of government revenue fairly important before that. So they'll bring out a 19th century example and say, hey, look, we used them, okay? That's not correct for today, but they'll talk about that, right? So they'll say, let's have a tariff just like we had back in 1850 or something like that. They'll also say that a tariff's not a tax. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so the Republicans are raising a tax here. Okay, it's going up. They love to call them fees or, you know, something over here. It's a tax. Okay, how much do we not like tariffs? Well, in many countries, you can put a tariff on stuff coming in, imports, and you can put a tariff on stuff going out. But we were so ticked off at the British back in the late 1700s, in the US, it's unconstitutional to have an export tariff. It's a rare clause in our Constitution where it explicitly says no tariff on the exports, because we remember the Boston Tea Party stuff. We were so ticked off about that. So we have a long history of not liking tariffs, okay, to put it in the Constitution. Many other countries will use that export tariff. We can't. So what do? Well, of course, they'll say it's just a fee. Okay, it's not a tax. Okay, so that's something that goes on. Another thing is that if you don't like immigration, then you need to buy imports, because that creates jobs in those countries. So it's kind of weird to hear them say, oh, we don't want all these immigrants coming in, and then you talk to them right here, undocumented, and say, well, there were no jobs where I came from, okay? So we need to buy their stuff so that there's jobs in those countries and bring it in, okay? Otherwise, the people will come, okay, because there's no jobs in their country. And you can do what you will, but they will come, okay? And we have also in the world today an age imbalance. So the only place that has a lot of young people is Africa. So Africa is going to be sending us a lot of people, okay? If you say, we don't want that, well, then you better buy their stuff, okay? So they have jobs there. So that's why we're seeing that age imbalance there. What's another thing? Oh, it's made in China. Okay. Oh, yeah. This is made in China, right? I bought this, I don't know, $600, and all my money went to China. Okay, that's another myth. Okay. Most of this is not made in China. It's assembled in China. Okay. Where does most of your money for your iPhone go? It goes to Apple. That's an American company, just to let you know. Okay. So made in China. The average US content of anything that says made in China on it is 55%. Okay. So be careful when you say, hey, I'm patriotic, I'm not buying that, it's made in China. Okay. Be careful. If it's complicated like this, very little Chinese content, even if it says made in China on it. A car, oh my gosh, okay? That's made in many places, right? You say that's a Chinese car, okay? And airplanes, half the Boeing airplane is not made in America, half the Airbus is made in America, okay? Airbus has a plant over in Alabama. Okay, so be careful with that. Now, if you pull out a little like plastic toy that says made in China, okay, maybe you got me, right? Maybe that was actually made in China and sent here, and oh, not anymore, right? Because we're not letting the ships come in, okay? But that's another myth. Made in America, same thing, right? Okay, is it really made in America, right? I'm patriotic, I'll be. Drive by a hotel, American owned and operated. Okay, really? Okay, is it operated by Americans? Okay, check it out. Okay, so American made, Chinese made. That's something that we have to be careful with Trump's tariffs. Let's say we wanted to, completely block trade. Could we do that? Almost impossible, right? To completely block trade from coming in. So this has been tried. A guy back in 1800, Thomas Jefferson, tried it, okay? But that's not our economy today, okay, to completely block trade from coming in, okay? If we are going to raise taxes, we shouldn't use tariffs. How should we do it? Well, I handed you out, some of you have this website. Peter Singer, a professor of ethics at Princeton University, or at least he was, has a nice site. It's easy to remember, The Life You Can Save. Okay, and it's a book too. He gives us a plan for raising taxes that is fair. And he says, let's raise taxes only on people making over $100,000. Let's not touch anyone under 100. Okay, how much could we raise? He's got a plan on that website, won't go into the details, to raise $471 billion over 2 years by just a 1 or 2 year tax on the richest, the wealthiest 10% of Americans. Okay? And you know when you do that, they'll cry, oh, tax increase, we don't like it, you're taking away my hard-earned money. Okay? So you can have a 2 year sunset. all 2 years, that's it, okay, to raise $471 billion, okay? What can you do with that money? Lots of things, okay? What can you not do with that money? Well, if we actually do try to round up all the undocumented immigrants living in the U.S., 11 million of them, that will need $400 billion in new federal spending. Where are they going to get that, right? So that's an impossible task that we can't possibly have, but we hear that they're starting to open up the prison camps and things like that here in the U.S. So that's something we got to be out on the street about. So Peter Singer says if we have this tax, it would be fair. We could put it into Social Security to help bolster that and Medicare, things like that. And this would be a much better way to raise money than a tariff. Okay? When we raise tariffs, the other countries do too. That's why the Great Depression lasted so long. They also raise their tariffs, as China is, as India does, and things like that. Then we are supposed to negotiate all these things, like you hear about these negotiations going on, okay? But we should be spending our time on things other than that, right? Negotiating that these are our allies, our friends, we should be talking with them and not sticking them with a high tariff. So one website you can go to.
Going to be using this?
No, I think I'll
Because the
start.
power was low.
Okay. So the Life You Can Save is one URL that I recommend. Okay. Who are the rich? And can you make a difference? Well, there's another easy to remember URL, givingwhatwecan.org. Okay. These are people who are committed to giving most of their salaries throughout their lives to people who are in extreme poverty. Okay, something I have not done. I admire them a lot. But this is something that we can talk about and maybe bring us together as well. Okay, givingwhatwecan.org. Another way that you say, what can I do about this? Oppose mass deportation and give what you can. Now, what is driving trade, this trade that we're blocking now? Two things, comparative advantage and economies of scale. These are kind of complicated things, but you might think of it as, how do I understand those boats coming in and out of Savannah or here in and out of Brunswick? What is this thing that's driving trade? Well, we say we want the country that makes the good or service with a low opportunity cost. You say, okay, what's that? Okay, so let me give you an example that you can say, how can I get that idea? That's 2/3 of international trade. Here's what you can do. When you go to the dentist and you plop down in that chair, who do you see first? The hygienist, right? So when you go next time to the dentist, say, halt, don't do anything. I want the best. The hygienist, let's say, flosses you. Let's just say, they do other things, but let's just focus on flossing. Say, I don't want you to floss me. I want the best flosser to floss me in the office. And I think it's the dentist is the best flosser, okay? That'll create a commotion, of course, right? Say, okay. And you might get, I know my dentist pretty well. He would come in and say, no, this person's going to floss it. And I would say, but wait a minute, you're the best at it. What do I mean by that? You could get my whole mouth flossed in less minutes than this person, or for a given amount of time, you could do more. That's what I mean by best, okay? And even if the dentist says, yeah, that's true, I'm still going to have the hygienist do it, okay? Why? Because the dentist will say, I've got this other stuff I got to do, like, putting in a crown, stuff like that. That's what we mean by opportunity cost. So if you get that idea, that's what's driving 2/3 of these boats coming in and out, okay? The dentist won't floss you even though they might be better at it because what they give up by doing that, okay? So that's what we're blocking right now. That will free up resources by having the country that has that low opportunity cost and allow us to do other things here. Okay, so that's comparative advantage. A tricky concept, try to explain it with equations and stuff, but just think of it as your dentist not flossing you.
So is the United States the dentist and they're the flosser? So is that what you say? Somewhat?
No, I'm saying these countries that are sending us stuff right now before Trump hit are the low opportunity cost producers.
And that's what the flossers are the low.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
So if you have the ability to do the higher opportunity things, then you need these people to do the flossing so that you can do the crowns.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's and that, by the way, builds up allies and friendships, right? Because that means we have to talk with these countries, and if they don't speak English, we'll have to learn their language and culture. We don't have to fall in love with them, but we do want to do business with them. We might, yeah, we just might do that. Okay. Now, also over time, if you're like me, I've been going to the dentist for a while. That dentist hasn't been doing much flossing. The hygienist's been doing a lot. So over time, the hygienist will become the best flosser. So things change. Yeah, that's right. And that will happen with international trade too. So one country won't have that comparative advantage. Someone else will get it. Okay? So that's fine. And then some other country may come along and say, wow, I want to do that dental work. I want to become the very best dentist. They should have the right to try, right? Go to dental school, things like that. So we say, yeah, that's normal. That's what's going on. That's what we're messing with right now, okay? That's striving to maybe be the best dentist, okay? So that's something that you want. Also, free trade gets a bad rap. People say free trade, I've been teaching it for a while. Students say, oh yeah, that means law of the jungle, do whatever you want. No, it means that we have the World Trade Organization in Geneva regulates all countries, and we have rules that we must follow, like the Securities and Exchange Commission with the stock market. That's what we mean by free, not just you can do whatever you want.
But what about shrimp?
What about shrimp?
Well, if it's free trade and these countries are ruining our shrimp industry because they're undercutting the price here.
Right, the Vietnamese shrimp versus the Georgia coastal shrimp. Okay, well, do they taste the same?
Well, I don't know, but people are buying it.
Okay, because I've talked to people who say Georgia shrimp has a distinct flavor over Vietnamese shrimp. I'm not an expert. You guys are closer to this than I am. Okay.
If Publix has got imported shrimp,
And they have Georgia shrimp.
I don't think so.
No?
Do they?
But it costs more. It costs more so that people who are thinking about their money and concerned because they're not going to buy it. And the other thing, and that's the aspect of free trade. I was going to ask about. And that is, remember when Ross Perot, I think it was NAFTA, said, do you hear that sucking sound? It's all the jobs going down to Mexico. Remember
Right.
that? And sadly, a lot of jobs did go from here, but they were specific kind of jobs, but they went there, and that is another weapon that we hear to use against the policies that Democrats typically support, and it alienates the blue-collar workers from our party. So help me with that one.
Okay, well, also, if that's true with shrimp, remember Japanese used to do that with rice too. They wouldn't import our rice because they wanted to protect their rice industry, so they had high-cost rice. Once ours went in, the buyer could choose low-price American or high-price Japanese in Japan. And so as an economist, I'd say let that consumer decide, okay, on that.
But isn't there a bill, if it's not been signed yet, that is saying that the shrimp that are coming in, you may not be able to stop it from coming in,
Yeah.
but you must identify if it's Georgia
Yeah.
shrimp or the other.
Yeah.
And that gives people the choice. That's your choice.
Right.
You buy the ones
Yes.
that you
Right.
want.
Yeah, and about 20 years ago, economists, that variety, we've now quantified that. It used to be kind of hard that people want, okay, they're going to buy based on price, but we also know people like variety when they walk into the store. So you want to have that variety, and trade will help with that too.
Spice of life.
Yeah, not everyone wants variety, but most people do, yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask, what you were just talking about, the flossing and everything. I can't remember what you called it again, but obviously China are doing all the flossing for us so we can do the crowns. What do you call it when, because this is what I feel has, the greed, the billionaire class, is where they're kind of then putting to the government, well, we can do these you know, we can do these next level crowns, and if you pay us, then we'll, you know, develop that whole new technology. I mean, what do you call that, which is the other side of it, is the people that are kind of presenting, I mean, I guess it's capitalism, but, you know, presenting this idea that there's even a much better solution, and then the government, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I would say that the,
Putting all that money into it,
Yeah.
and so everyone's getting even more greedy and pushing out, you know, investing in things that really we don't even know whether they're going to turn out or whether.
well, that's a good thing to invest in things that we don't necessarily know will turn out. We want that to happen, right? Because that'll make, right now in the world you have the Magnificent Seven, the tech companies here, and their only competition is in China. The EU does not have a big tech companies like we do and China does. So one question that we're discussing is how come the EU doesn't have one of those companies, okay? And then if they're both going to go into the EU, who's going to win that competition, right, between their Netflix and our Netflix and TikTok and, you know, that stuff. So how come we have those and China has them but EU doesn't? So we're looking at, you know, those policies. But trade will free up the resources, you know, by having the low opportunity cost producer, allowing the dentist to focus in on the crowns and stuff like that, to have breakthroughs and have new inventions. We want to promote that, right? Now, immigrants give us those things. So this is why we were yelling at, I'm sorry, not yelling, we were chanting at the rally, bring in the immigrants, right? Because Steve Jobs, his biological dad was a Syrian immigrant, glad he came. Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Alphabet Google, was a Russian immigrant, glad he came. Okay, I'm glad that company is American and not Russian, you know, especially now. Okay, so these immigrants are going to come into our economy, look at things a little differently, and invent things and have new ideas. That's the strength of America. Okay, and we're better at it, or we used to be until, you know, Trump came along, than many other countries. So we want to keep that coming. Yeah.
Can you explain this concept I heard somebody talking about on TV, where if we're going to put these tariffs on imported cars, the price of American cars is going to go up?
Yeah.
What is that concept?
Well, I'll use the 1980s when we did that with Japanese imports, okay? We said to Japan, you can only send in a certain number of cars, but we won't have a tariff, we'll have a quota, another trade barrier. So Japan sent their high-end cars into the US, and that boosted the price of American cars here because we blocked their lower priced cars with a quota. Now we have with EVs, China has really good EVs, right, but we won't let them in, right? And their range is up to like 450 or something, you know, and they have the $30,000, $25,000 EV. They already have that, and we're here wanting that. Yeah. So, yeah, so that's another example that if we quota that, they're going to send only their high-end ones, and that'll raise our prices here. In the 1980s, we saw that happen with Japan. Yeah.
Yeah, can you say something about how to keep, how we are able in the past history at some point to keep capitalism in a balanced thing so that monopolies just didn't buy, companies didn't, that we didn't have, the greed didn't take over. How do you keep greedy people from just taking everything?
That's the goal, I know.
Yeah, that's a question for a minister. No.
Yeah, that's probably values.
Yeah. No, we want a certain amount of greed, but this is where you get back to free trade and regulation. So we say, okay, but people are trying to make money with international trade. We need to have a strong World Trade Organization that we all follow those rules. And of course, Trump is trying to destroy the WTO, among other things. Yeah. And he's trying to say that we're not going to follow their rules and exit from that. The SEC, we want them to regulate the stock market. A lot of greed there. So we need a strong SEC to make sure rules are followed. But we don't want to kill off greed and say, don't be greedy.
And environmental regulations too, we wanna keep those.
Yeah, and you can be greedy and green, right? You
Yeah.
can make cheap solar panels and make some money from that. So we got to capture those green jobs. Yeah, that's there. Yeah.
Yeah, going back to the issue of imported cars versus domestic, isn't the problem more along the lines of domestic cars have so many imported parts
Mhm.
that the tariffs on the parts is what's going to raise the price more than anything else?
Right. And when we blocked Japan 40 years ago from coming in, they opened right near my hometown a Honda plant, right? So that's another thing these foreign companies do. They'll open a plant here, FDI, like Hyundai here.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
been building Japanese cars in this country for decades.
Right. And those are American.
Yeah, American
Yeah.
plants.
So that'll lead to more foreign direct investment if done properly, which of course creates lots of jobs here. Most of the people at the Hyundai plant will be Americans. Yeah.
Well, I'm a simple person, let's just talk about a ham.
A ham?
A ham, you know, a ham?
Okay.
Smithfield is owned by China, did you all know that? Your
No.
Smithfield hams are owned by China. That's a Carolina, good old ham, right? And American people are making the Smithfield ham. The profits are going to China. Who gets taxed?
North Carolinians.
Does anybody in China have to pay any fee, tariff, tax,
Oh.
anything for anything like that? Because that's just a real simple little example.
Yeah.
Then-
On their profit, they would pay their own country.
Yeah, I don't know the taxing in China, but they do get subsidies. Yeah.
What do we get out of it if they're taking the profit to China?
Well,
You get the jobs, you
yeah.
Real nice low, nice low pay, nice low pay.
Yeah.
Well, do they own it?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but they, everything's, you know, just because they own it.
But we
doesn't
will
mean
get
it's-
the sales tax.
Yeah.
They're all in there.
Okay, well,
Tariffs.
that flossing covers 2/3 of the boats coming in. The other third is economies of scale, which we know if you look at Henry Ford's plant, right? You build a big plant, you can drop the average cost of a product by building it large and having the workers specialize in tasks, standard assembly line going way back. So some small countries will have big plants, but they can't sell in only their country because they're small. So they're going to want to export it here. Okay, so this encourages them to try to achieve economies of scale in some goods and services and then export here, creating jobs there. So that's the other reason for international trade. The other third of the boats are something related to economies of scale. Okay, so that's kind of the two things that we're getting in the way of now with tariffs is economies of scale and comparative advantage. There's also world peace. If we have to do business with other countries, we're going to understand them better. Steven Pinker, I think a psych professor, but he has a lot of books on this. Countries that trade tend not to go to war with each other. Not perfectly, but trade over time does promote peace. So after World War II, when we set up trade structures to try to regulate world trade, we did get more peace. So he's looked at, you know, is war in general kind of in decline until the Ukraine war, of course, in 2022 picked up. There was a decline. If you look back over decades and certainly over centuries, there's less war and countries are trading more. And the U.S. has tried to, Fareed Zakaria was talking about this, has tried to set up a world system where the U.S. isn't completely dominant like a former empire, like the British Empire way back, China or something like that. Not a perfect job, of course, but tried to set up so we could have more free trade with not one country dominating that on a global scale. So that's another thing that we don't want to block. You may have experienced autarky, no trade, under COVID. If you were in isolation, okay, you couldn't go very far and the things that you could get were limited and the price might have gone way up, okay? At one point we were paying anything to get some toilet paper. We couldn't find it. Okay, so if you had that experience, and then you might have had during COVID a pod where you had a group of people that you agreed that you would interact just within that group, but nothing outside. So free trade is that we're going to keep opening and opening up more variety and lower prices. Okay. Regulated, hopefully, by the WTO and other institutions. So not just you can do whatever you want. It has to be regulated by what we agree on. Okay, so that's another website is Giving What We Can, and also something I like to do is explaining this to other people, the benefits of trade. So financial literacy. A lot of people don't understand what free trade is. So what you can do, there's a site called handsonbanking.org. And that site is in English and Spanish. You can just toggle over to Spanish. So you can help other people understand basic personal finance, but also some of these benefits of trade are on there as well. Youthhandsonbanking.org. Okay, that's a website that where you say, what can I do about this? So tariffs are a way to block trade. And other ways are the quota. We tried that. Another problem with tariffs is they don't go away. Once you put them there, they tend to stick around. They're hard to get rid of. Okay, example, going back to cars again, in the early 1960s, Germany was exporting something called a combi van here, and we got upset about it, and so we put a tariff on all imported trucks at that time, okay? That tariff is still with us today. We haven't gotten rid of it, okay? Long ago, we stopped importing trucks from Germany. We went to Japan and other countries, but that tariff stuck around. So trucks are treated differently than basic cars. And this has changed our whole automobile industry because in the 1980s and 1990s, US automakers realized that trucks were way more protected than some other kinds, so they started with the whole pickup truck thing, right? Because pickup trucks are very profitable, okay?
Chicken tax.
Yeah, the chicken tax, good, okay, yeah. And so it had to do way back then with chickens, that we were angry at them for putting a tax on our chicken exports, okay? So that's where it originated. You think, boy, that's ancient history, it's a long time ago, but it sticks around. Hard to get rid of these things, okay? So this chaos, another concern is that it's just gonna kind of hang around and we won't be able to get rid of these
Is
tariffs.
Ford, don't they just make trucks now?
I don't know,
I think. No? They just have cars, okay.
yeah.
Well, it's a big thing in the, I'm a Volkswagen person.
Oh, okay.
So it's a big thing in the VW industry, is you couldn't buy a Volkswagen pickup. The only place you could get them is after 25 years, you can get them from Canada or get them shipped into the United States afterwards. Even now, the Mercedes Sprinter vans, they ship them without an interior, and then they put an interior when they come. It's really weird how they sell it as a passenger vehicle, and then they take the seats out and it becomes a truck.
Yeah.
It's because of the truck tax. It's because of the chicken tax.
Yeah.
That ancient thing.
That ancient thing, yeah.
Stays there,
Yeah, and the reason it went in effect is something good. We wanted the European Union to get together so we didn't have another world war. So we were supporting, let's have a European community. And West Germany back, France, let's get them all together. That's a good thing. But when they got together, they put a tax on our chicken. And we put a tax on their vehicles. That's, a long time ago. It's still around. Also, smaller pickup trucks are also affected. It's harder to find a small pickup truck because of this distortion. We know that in other countries they have them, okay, but there's that distortion by the barriers. So that's a problem. Okay, what's some ways that we could recommend that the government get money besides tariffs? I mentioned Peter Singer has his tax. You can also lobby to stop making the penny and the nickel, okay?
You can also take the cap off Social Security.
That, yes. Cap off of Social Security. So it costs 2 cents to make a penny, 11 cents to make a nickel. We need to be done with these, okay? And given what's gone on in Canada very recently, so proud of them, we can follow. They now have an economist? No, okay. But Canada also has gotten rid of the the paper dollar, right? That would save money too. So that's millions of dollars we have if we would just switch over a little, some of our money. That's just, to me, like low-hanging fruit. Let's just do that, okay? Because we can get additional money. Yes, Social Security, that's not really tariffs, but yes, we can blow the cap on the Social Security, absolutely. And that's,
The rich pay.
yeah, you should pay, it's what, 180 now? If you're above 180, you don't pay any Social Security tax. That's, yeah. And we're down to 2.2 workers for everyone getting a check. So we need more workers. There's only two ways to get more workers. Have more babies. Now, I've just been talking, yeah, I've been talking to my students, and they're like, no, we're not having 4 or 5 kids. I mean, you may know someone else, but the only other way is immigration. That's it. So, and remember, the undocumented immigrants already here are paying into Social Security, and they don't get any money back. So that's another reason to give them a big hug and say thank you. Okay.
They pass to legal citizenship, that would be nice too.
If they would pass.
A pathway, but isn't there a reason that we don't push really the pathway, because didn't some president do that, and then they went and got better jobs and stuff? I don't know.
Oh, there was an amnesty under Reagan.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
was a big backfire, right?
Yeah, he weathered it.
I mean, yeah, he's awful.
Yeah, and demographically, who's having the kids right now? Immigrants, legal, and their children. Those are the, if you take away those two groups of Americans, which I'm not a member of, we're in a population decline, like many other rich countries. So we have to have more immigrants to rescue Social Security. Those are related. And so that gets back to trade, right? If we are going to let more people in, okay, with help with that, yeah.
Isn't increasing tariffs over time going to price us out of the world economy and get everybody else to do more business with each other and less business with the United States?
Yeah, watch the Canadian Prime Minister right now doing that, yeah.
Yeah, that's happening right
Yeah.
now.
You have the
Yeah.
Europeans, the Mexicans, and the Chinese
That's what's China.
Yeah,
cooperating to do business.
yeah.
And, you know, all of a sudden, we're gonna find out we're making stuff nobody wants.
Yeah, that's trade diversion. That's what that's called. Yeah. So trade is being diverted there. Okay. And countries have tried that. Now, a whole bunch of economists, and also about 30 or 40 years ago, said we're going to do strategic tariff policy. They spent, all the academic journals, lots of articles, and at the end of all that research, they said, no, this doesn't work. Okay. So have they, taken all the theory and investigated? Might there be a way to everybody raises tariffs and somehow get a strategic gain for everybody? No. Okay. Work of Paul Krugman, if you read his work, shows this. So they did try, to have some sort of strategic tariff policy. Now, if we are doing, if we're talking about trade, we want to lower all the barriers to trade. But yes, it's important to negotiate that the other country also lowers them. And then a final point, I thought Fareed Zakaria made, this was like 2 weeks ago. He's really good with this stuff. He said, remember that most countries now are making services, not goods, right? A service you cannot put your hand on, a good you can. So manufacturing is going down in many countries. So this argument that we need tariffs to protect manufacturing because America doesn't make anything anymore, that's just not true, okay? We make really good services and we export them all over the world, right? We export them to China, okay? But you can't put your hand on them. And services create really good jobs. I know my students right now are getting them, okay? So it's okay, we say we still want to make some stuff here, yeah, but we are moving into a service world economy, not just here in the US. So there's nothing wrong with a service economy, okay? And people getting jobs there. But you'll hear that when they talk about tariffs, that America doesn't make anything anymore, okay? That argument is out there. let's see, what other, I want to kind of destroy the myths of tariffs. A tariff can be absolute, it can be in dollars, or it can be in percentages, right? A percentage of whatever's coming in. And then to make it complicated in agriculture, they do both. So there's something called a tariff rate quota, where they have no tariff on the first amount coming in, and then they have some tariff on anything above that. So tariffs can be rather complicated, okay? But they are a tax, and they are a barrier to trade. So I think for the Democrats, this is something we need to seize upon and say, if we really are a big tent, we have disagreements, I'm sure, in here, but we are disagreeing among friends, okay? And you got all the economists on board with you on this issue. So it's a way to reach out and bring people into the Democratic Party that might not otherwise be there. You know, there's a lot of these, David Brooks says, you know, the Republican Party now has divided into conservatives, right, and then MAGA. Okay, so these conservatives, a lot of them are starting to look for a home, you know, like, where do I go? Okay, and if we can bring them in, we can win some elections where we're not supposed to win, right? Because bigger tent, yeah.
So, a number of thoughts have come to my mind since you've been talking, from invisible hand, you know, economics to, there's so many things that this embargo, the other countries could be performing currently against this administration, and then hopefully when we vote in someone new, that things will turn around and we'll be friends again and all that good stuff. But for me as an individual, I've done a few things in regards to what's going on. Just quickly, I downloaded a hard copy of my Social Security, or what I made, my earnings throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what was going on with Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I went more conservative in my investments, which
Mm-hmm.
then it was like, oh, frick, the bonds. But what I think comes out of that for me in contacting my legislators, Carter, Ossoff, Warnock, is the idea you just put out there that we need to, in regards to the tariffs and things like that, and my mom would say it's gone, good folks, it's gone. But in contacting the legislators and saying, think about along these lines, and if you could repeat that one important point, that's what I would say to my legislator, and having, you know, putting that thought in their mind, this is what we need to be doing.
Yeah.
And this is what we, the people, are thinking of doing. This is how we can come together to fight what's going on. You know, and of course, bring the cohesion that's needed. So,
Yeah, did you mention, in that list was Buddy Carter one of those?
well, you know,
Okay.
you don't, yeah, I mean, you know, you
ride
pound
him
away.
too.
You just gotta pound away.
You have
to Yeah.
ride, that's right.
He's gonna stay obstinate.
Yeah.
That's his choice.
Yeah,
But I'm going to let him know how
Hear
I'm
it.
thinking, and I have.
That's
I've been
right.
to his office twice.
yeah,
And I've called Warnock, Ossoff, and which I'm trying to get a town hall here, and I think everyone else is.
Thank you.
I believe they're
Thank you.
working on it. They
Yeah.
are working on it.
okay,
But
yeah.
you know what?
But-
When you said what you just said, I thought, oh, this is how I can approach my legislators now. This is what they're just doing. I hope you all are doing it.
Yeah.
And let them know that we're not stupid out here. You know,
Yeah, and free trade traditionally was conservative and common sense. That's another thing our congressman up in Bullitt County loves to say, well, I'm just doing common sense things. Okay, well, free trade is common sense, and it helps poor people a lot. I hope you have better luck with Carter. Our congressman up in Bullitt County, I just get a form letters, you know, but
you know,
that's,
Carter, if nothing else, just kind of poke him.
yeah, yeah.
If anything would get to it, though, it would be something related to the economy.
Yeah.
Because the other issues that we're concerned about, they're not gonna relate to that. But
And if you name the conservative icons that you might know, like George Will, David Brooks, they're all against tariffs, okay? So this is, we chance to bring us together. Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to make a goddamn bit of difference as long as that jackass in the White House is not gonna change his mind.
I think the last person he talks to will be what he does. So we got to make the last person he talks to be free.
I just want to say, we're
Yeah.
recording this, and we're going to post it on our YouTube page.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to have to cut that out, so you have to just,
Oh, okay.
We can tell
No, I'm about to retire, so I have no fear. They can post it, yeah.
Can I just ask about American companies abroad? Because
Yeah.
my dad worked for an American company all his life.
Right.
We lived in all different European countries. And so, like, for example, England, 2.5% of the workforce
Right.
work for American companies
Wow.
in England.
Okay.
1.1 million Americans work in England.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to understand that is with all the tariffs and with these changes, and I know you say America and China, well, a lot of these American companies have divisions in European countries.
Right.
Where they have the technology division in Germany, and they're using that expertise. And it's all globalization, isn't it? It's not really Americans working on it. It could be some German, some Romanian, some French person working on American technologies, but it's under an American umbrella.
Yeah.
So with all this drama with the tariffs, what happens to all those American companies with divisions all over Europe? Are they going to start closing down and coming home if there's going to be this EU trade war, or which is happening already? Just
Well,
it's like, that's what I'm wondering.
my brother's in the process of moving to London, to going the other direction, yeah, to work for an American company that I think is moving out of America.
So you think that more may move into,
Yeah.
I just wonder
But-
how
but-
that's going to happen,
but
because
the-
we're so enmeshed.
Right, that's
It's not
the
like
problem,
America
yeah.
and China. They're all everywhere.
Right.
So it's like,
And the supply chain disruption from the pandemic we saw was much more long-term than we thought it would be, and these tariffs are disrupting them again. So there's going to be a lot of ripples because of the disruption with supply chains.
There's animosity now, right?
Yeah.
Like, there is a different, like, it's not like when people say, well, we had this happen during the pandemic. No, it's not the same. Like, China is like saying they ain't gonna answer our calls. Like,
Yeah. And we also know that wages are higher in the U.S., wages are higher if the company exports. So we tell our students, when you're interviewing for a job, ask around at the company, are they doing any exporting? If they are, you're going to tend to have higher salaries. So we're hitting that now because those companies may not be able to export because of a trade barrier by the other countries. So that hurts us here, lower wages, lower income, because we're hurting our exporting ability.
What just happened with the Senate on that close vote to clip the tariffs, stop the tariffs?
That's not going to happen because the House will block it.
I know, but why did the Senate vote first? Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Well, that happens
Well, how are they
sometimes.
involved? Usually it's the Congress and then it goes into the
Who brings
Senate.
it forward first,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, I think they were being pressured properly to do something and to get the power back to Congress instead of the president to do the
But
tariffs.
Congress is pretty even too, so you would think they
Yeah.
could get some Congress people from the northern states that are right next to Canada. They're
Yeah.
going to be decimated
Yeah.
to put pressure on them.
Well, we're seeing Collins, Murkowski, and interestingly, the two senators from Kentucky, Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell. Those four, yeah. But it gets blocked in the House. That's why I got to retake the House next year. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that I know a lot of us are sort of
Hello, somebody's talking.
Yes, a lot of us seem to be opposed to the tariffs.
Right.
But some are very favorable for it, for me in particular, because the inroads that can be made in 3 to 6 weeks, Target, Walmart, and they're going to be empty shelves. We're going to have a COVID effect, is what is being claimed.
Right.
And this is the windfall. I mean, the Democrats could go out and protest in mass, or we could have these massive tariffs and the prices of eggs at $25 a dozen. I mean, I can't wait. And blueberries at $20
Yeah.
a pint. I mean, I can't wait, because that's the inroads that will disproportionately hurt, I believe, the MAGA cohort in the red states,
Right.
which is why AOC and Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders, fantastic. They're really on it. They're going deep into the deep red,
Yeah.
because they're making us aware of they're going to be hurting really. Like, for example, the possibility of privatizing the US Post Office. The implications for rural communities, as well as agriculture and everything, all this portends horrifically
Yeah.
for the Republicans long term. Rand Paul pointed out in the 30s, we took a hit, he said.
Yeah.
Like in 2 to 3 cycles, we lost the Congress repeatedly
Yeah.
over time. So I'm sort of like, I'm looking forward to paying triple prices for everything. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to take a big hit to my 401k if it gets rid of Trump. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm welcome to this.
Yeah.
I wanted to push back to that. That's James Carville's theory as well.
Oh.
Thank you.
And here's why. Because when you wreck things, you can't always get them back.
Mhm.
And even if you can't think about the devastation, let's say, of the Civil War. Think about World War I, because that was in this country. And how long it took to come back. We are letting him destroy, you can tell I'm passionate about this. We are letting him destroy, and I understand your theory. If you hurt hard enough, you're gonna change your mind. Oh, maybe, there's a lot of people that drink the Kool-Aid and think he's got this master plan, but we won't be able to get these back. Our correlation between educational institutions and research and government, all of those wonderful alliances you've been talking about and all of y'all referred to, those are getting gone, and they're, like Bruce Springsteen said, those jobs are going, boys, and they ain't coming back. We can't afford the level of destruction that those people would understand and maybe change their mind.
And also the prices may be going down in the EU because China overproduces, and if we block their stuff, they got to sell it somewhere. So they may be lowering prices in other places that we block. Yeah. Yeah.
Does cryptocurrency have anything to do with this whole system? Is there
Yeah, it is a big part of it.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
The blockchain technology is really good, especially in poor countries, to fight corruption because all the transactions can be tracked. Okay, the Bitcoin economists don't yet call money because there's no central authority. So the kind of jury's out, is that really money yet? I understand it has uses. The Trump cryptocurrency is pure corruption. And then the Fed, our central bank, has said they're going to come out with a Fed coin cryptocurrency. I haven't seen it yet, but that would be a cryptocurrency with a central authority. And that's coming because we see some other countries are doing that. So can trade be done with cryptocurrency? Sure, but not yet because it's not widespread.
It's not really none of this is dangerous like at all, like the crypto and stuff. Like it seems.
Well, some people like the Bitcoin that there's no central authority. There's people that really like that. So.
Now, is this recoverable? Or as an economist, do you see
Yes.
that we're beyond the point of?
No, it is recoverable. Yeah, I believe in American resilience because of people like us. Yeah.
You're talking about tariffs.
Yeah.
So I remember I was living in the Rust Belt, and it was Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton that pushed for NAFTA.
Right.
So all the Republicans wanted to break the unions. So my town turned into a huge Rust Belt. Now it's been, 50, 60 years, and it still hasn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the neighboring county manufactured pharmaceuticals, Bayer and Whitehall. And they moved those jobs, I think Whitehall went to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't stand people making $11 to $14 an hour and have a union. So why, explain to me, I know there's good reasons why Bill Clinton wanted to support the Republicans and open it up to NAFTA and why it wasn't controlled more.
Okay, well, NAFTA was 94. Canada and the U.S. had a free trade agreement in 89. So NAFTA is Mexico joining an existing Canadian-U.S. free trade agreement, okay? So that's part of it. NAFTA was very beneficial in Mexico, okay, in several ways. These are people living on $1,000 a year, okay, and creating jobs there. Trade adjustment assistance was started under President Kennedy, expanded under Obama, but with a lot of those workers that lost their jobs, they didn't know about the program, but there was specific adjustment assistance with the understanding, like a town that you were mentioned where
South Bend, Indiana.
Okay, South Bend, yeah, where you're losing your jobs and people didn't know that that assistance was there. Not saying that would solve everything, but they didn't even know about it and use it. Like in Georgia, where we had counties that were NAFTA counties, and workers who lost jobs there didn't know that they had small business free support from the federal government to help adjust to the job loss from NAFTA. So that was one problem. But yes, there were areas where the benefits of NAFTA were not given back to those workers who lost their jobs. That was very painful. Yeah.
And on that same topic,
Yeah.
I've seen a number of economists quote that manufacturing output in the United States has continued to grow decade after decade, from the 50s to the 60s to the aughts to the teens and into the 20s. Our output continues to grow.
Right.
And that the bulk of the problems that we're talking about in manufacturing economy in the United States isn't trade-based, it's productivity-based.
Yeah.
That you now have lights-out factories running where the only guys in there are the mechanics maintaining and the engineers maintaining the robots.
Right, and the precursor to that is our agriculture sector, where almost nobody's working in agriculture, but the output is doing very, very well.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing.
Yeah.
That all of the goods producing part of the economy is doing that with a tiny fraction of the labor that it happened with even in our youth.
Right, and if you object to that and say, no, we should freeze the structure and not allow that to happen, I invite you to read about, or as I did, live in the former communist economies. That's what they did. They froze their structure with the workers and said, we're not going to allow that to happen, that decrease in labor, and they were way, way behind. So the communist economies were an example of where you didn't allow that transition, which is very painful. I mean, to switch over like that, that's hard to do, to another career. Average career switch now is 5 for the students, that you'll have to change careers. Yeah.
But I've read that China has maybe the greatest robotics
Yeah.
manufacturing in the world today.
Yeah.
Which means high productivity, and they have billions of workers.
Right.
So how are they handling that situation?
They're handling it well, but remember that they still have the Communist Party that interferes in their economy a lot, and so I'm kind of skeptical.
Are they subsidizing
Massively.
the poor people?
Yeah.
So why can't we subsidize the poor people? Like in Canada, there's a city where anybody that makes below a certain amount of money, they're subsidizing those poor people.
Well, we have universal basic income experiments like going in Stockton, California, where they just hand people who are poor cash. So that could be rolled out. Andrew Yang ran for president with that. Yeah. So yeah, that could happen. But China, long run, medium run, they have the Communist Party, constantly interfering in their manufacturing. So I think we have an edge in that sense. I'm not saying that it's great here, especially now, but we don't have this top-down, surveillance state everywhere. I don't think so. Not like China. Not like China.
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry. We gotta quit.
We're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for Buddy Carter protest outside his office. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
And there's a protest, if you have concern about LGBTQ, there's a protest Saturday that's at,
Mary Ross.
And cosplay on the Sunday at the 4th, 5 to 7 at Neptune Park. It's just community, like everybody coming together and just, potluck and pie.
All right.
Yes.
American Pie. Thank you. Thank you all for
What can we get from him?
They did. They did.
Did I miss it?
Yeah. Where's the guy?
Awful nice meeting you.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
A lot of knowledgeable people.